Hello and welcome back to the Comfort Zone podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about experience, moments, and situations where we've gone out of our comfort zone in a comfortable environment. And today we have Kelsey, aka Kumalash Studio.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to do this podcast with the Comfort Zone, and you guys should definitely watch because there's a lot more episodes on here that are super cool and super informative. And April's great at what she does. So,
Thank you
thanks
so
again for
much.
having me, and I hope you guys enjoy this episode.
I'm so glad that you're on this episode because I have been following you for a while. And although we've never talked, I feel like we know each other. And I know your journey coming to Spain. I think you know my journey
Yeah.
in Spain. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, I want to know a little bit about you. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? Your background?
Yeah, so I kind of touch on it sometimes in my TikToks, but I'm half American white, my mom is, and then my dad is Filipino, so I'm mixed culture background here.
Wait
I
one second. You're the
yeah.
opposite.
I
You're the opposite to the normal. No one.
Everyone says that. Literally every Filipino person I say, like meet, they're like, "Wait, your mom's not Filipino?" I'm like, "No." Like my mom was white.
That's literally for those
Yeah.
of you who are listening, that's like so not the norm. Normally, it's like
Yeah,
the
it's not
white
the
dad and a
normal.
Filipino mom. You're like Olivia Rodrigo. Her dad's Filipino and her mom's white.
I didn't know that.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so that makes two. Two in the whole world. But yeah, so yeah, my dad's the Filipino, my mom's the white, blonde hair, blue eyes, white. Yeah, like white blonde
Oh,
lady. And then my dad's Filipino. I grew up mostly on the West Coast in Las Vegas and in San Diego. I've lived other places in the US as well. Um, but yeah, that's just a little bit about my background.
wow. So, one thing that we have in common is obviously the Filipino heritage.
Mhm.
Have you ever been to the Philippines? Where in the Philippines is your dad from?
Yeah, so my grandpa is from Pampanga and my grandma's from La Union. And I had been to the Philippines when I was 3 years old. I don't really remember too much other than I drank ice cubes that my uncle gave me and I got really sick and ended up in the hospital like 3 years old. My mom was like, I think she was like 26 at the time. So can you imagine? She was like in this other country with like a 3 year old panicking because we were like somewhere in the jungle, like at this strange hospital, like I was getting like IVs and
Oh my
all because of some ice cubes. Yeah.
I think
So
I know
that's
exactly what it is. It's called ice candy. And was it in like a little bag?
no, actually it was so I had an uncle that he was so excited because he's like, "Oh, I have an ice machine or something." And my dad was like, he didn't want to insult him and like not take the ice or something. It was like some sort of weird thing. And my mom was like, "No, we're only drinking bottled water." But he did it behind my mom's back. And he gave me like a glass of water with ice cubes in it. And he poured
That's
the
the
water
thing.
from the bottle, but the ice was from like, tap water or whatever
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And dad got
That's
sick.
actually that's actually like one of like if you go to the Philippines, this is a huge tip. Even if you buy bottled water, make sure that
Yeah.
the ice is filtered water because like you
Mm-hmm.
can get bottled water and the ice ain't filtered, you're gonna get
Yep.
sick.
Absolutely, yeah. Yep. So that's what happened, and then so we ended up cutting the trip short because my mom was like, "We need to get back to the U.S. and we need to get like, I'm stressed out here with this 3 year old that's sick."
And
So
was that like the only time you've been to the Philippines or did you go back when you were a little older?
I've been invited to go back many times with my grandparents and my cousins from that side of the family. I just between work and between like everything going on, I just never
Mhm.
took it up. But I would love to go back. I even have friends that have invited me to weddings and stuff out there. I just never gone back, but I would love to go as an adult.
You have to. You have to as an adult because it's different as an adult. As a
Yeah, absolutely.
kid as a kid, you're just so limited.
Yeah,
I'm
it
like
is, and I remember like pieces of it. So as an adult, I would love to go back and experience it in a different
but the
way.
West Coast of the US has a huge Filipino community.
Huge.
I'm not from the US, but I have family in like San Francisco,
Yeah.
Sacramento as well, and there's a lot of Filipinos there, and I wanted to know like what was your experience growing up with this huge community being half?
It was nice, honestly, because there is so much diversity on the West Coast. You get diversity in all sorts of different kinds of Asians, all sorts of different kinds of Indians, South Americans, things like that. So you get a lot of diversity. I think in some moments, because I changed, I think I've heard you talk about it on TikTok before too, where you changed schools a lot, like growing up. And I've also changed schools a lot. Like I went to 8 different schools through middle school to high school, like in different states. So at one point I was like going to a small school in Oklahoma, like out in like the boondocks, like I did that for like a 6-month stunt where my mom like moved us out there to like be with her family. It was crazy. So anyway, I was the only Asian person in like this whole freaking town.
Oh my God.
So I felt like a sore thumb, definitely. And then I lived in Texas for a while, kind of the same thing. We were like in a really white suburb. And then we went back to Vegas, where there was like a lot more diversity. So I've kind of had like, 2 different experiences with like being Asian in different places. But I would definitely say West Coast is definitely nicer to be Asian because you just get so much diversity.
I feel that too, because like, well, when I was growing up in Canada, I like a lot of my time I was in like Ajax, Scarborough, Mississauga, Brampton. Maybe you don't know what that means, but basically a lot of diversity. And then I went back to the Philippines. When I went back to Canada, my parents moved to Milton. And like even the name,
I was like Milton. Okay.
even hearing the name Milton, know that it was a very white neighborhood. I'm like, Milton has boomed now, so there's a lot more diversity in Milton. But like back in the day, there was not a lot of diversity. There was definitely like a divide of like the white Miltonians and like all of the people who moved to Milton because they started building a bunch of like suburban houses, which was like us, the immigrants. And it was rough. It was rough being like Asian in a predominantly white area. And like,
I mean, I remember like at some point we lived in Colorado for like a couple years in like a small mountain town, Christian mountain town. I was there was one other Black girl there and it was me, like another Asian girl, like half Asian. And I remember like literally covering my skin so that I would not get more tan. Cause we're like Filipino, I tan. Like if I go outside for a couple hours, girl, I'm tan, like I'm tanning.
Girl.
And so I remember like wearing long sleeve shirts and stuff to like cover. I remember like having like straightening my hair and like so I could look more like the people that live there. I don't know what was going on, girl.
No. Oh my God. I remember. This is like, you just triggered like a core memory.
You're like, wait.
Right. I remember when I was like, okay, so I was like maybe in grade 4, and I remember all of my little white friends, blonde, whatever, we were like playing in recess, and we were in the sun, and this one girl was like, oh my God, look, I have such, look at my natural highlights, because, she was blonde, and like her hair was not just one color, and then my little Asian girl with the black hair. I'm like, oh my God, do I have natural highlights? And they're like, no.
That's when you spray the sun in, the hydrogen peroxide spray.
And then I literally like, I went through so many phases. Like I highlighted my hair. I wanted curly hair. I got a perm for what? Literally worst decision of my life. Like
for what?
And just so that I can like kind of fit in. And let's be honest, honestly, it wasn't until like, I would say 8 years ago, I stopped dyeing my hair.
Wow.
Yeah. I always
Your
had
hair
like,
looks great. Your hair is amazing.
thank you. It took a long time to like get healthy again. But like, with all of the like, this little white girl in grade 4 can basically like put in my head, I need highlights. And I've had highlights almost my entire life. I did the whole ombre thing. Basically ruined my hair. I did the Snooki ones in high school too.
I think we all did that though. Like those little weird strings. Like we all did that.
I did the Snooki highlights in high school too. Yeah. And then after just like a lot of bleach and a lot of damage, I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
You know what? Here in Europe, well, I don't know what it is. I think specifically in Italy, so maybe it's an Italian thing. I'm not sure. But so many people have gone up to me and been like, is that your natural hair color or do you dye it? And I'm like, wow. Do you like it?
You think I'm pretty?
Like, you like it even though I don't have highlights?
I don't have highlights though.
And like so many people are like, wow, it's so dark. Like, I love your hair. It looks like you dyed it. And I'm like,
Yeah. No, it's
finally,
natural. It's natural. I think because I was watching this video on TikTok that basically they were saying like, oh, people should stop dyeing their hair and just use their natural hair color because it's really the thing that like God gave you that suits you best with all the other skin tones, eye tones, and stuff. And I really believe that, So I haven't touched my hair in forever, and I did the same thing you did, like completely ruin the ends, completely ruin the roots and stuff. Oh man,
Yeah. No, I did the
so
same, and I genuinely think, especially for Asian women, I
yeah,
think the contrast of like the black hair and
yes,
like our skin color
yeah,
is just so nice. And
it's so
it
nice.
took me a while to accept it.
Yeah,
Took me
yeah,
a
yeah.
while.
No, but I think it's
In
beautiful.
Milton, it was a little difficult.
In Milton. In Milton. Got me
In
good.
Milton. But yeah, so that's you felt like there was more diversity obviously in the West Coast. And how like is your dad, because normally like if your mom is Filipino, she like really drills like Filipino values, but I feel like Filipino dads are a bit more chill. So
Definitely.
I was wondering how like in touch or how much exposure did you get to the Filipino culture?
I think it came more so from my grandparents than my actual dad, because he was
Mm,
kind of like in the picture, out of the picture. But my grandparents were steady; they were like very steady
mm,
throughout me growing up. And my dad was kind of like the Disneyland dad. Like my mom would be the one that would be yelling at me for stuff, and then my dad would be like, "Hey, don't yell at her! Like she's just a kid. Like she's like I remember like in third grade. I don't know why I did this. It's probably because my dad. We were saying the Pledge of Allegiance, we did that kind of thing. And I pulled out a chair from underneath this kid next to me because I don't know why I thought it would be funny that he would like sit. I don't know what, third grade. I don't know what I was thinking. So he fell down and he bumped his head on the back of the chair. And I got sent to the principal's office and I was like crying. I was like traumatized. I'm like, I'm a good kid. I don't know why I was traumatized. So the principal calls my mom in and he's like, your child is dangerous. Like she can't be doing those kinds of things. He could have broken his neck, And so I went home. She was yelling at me for it. My dad was like, don't yell at her. She's just having fun. So he totally let me off the hook for it. But it was probably, I asked my mom as an adult, like, why did I do that as like a young child? And she's like, because you used to pull the chair out from your dad and he used to pretend to sit on invisible air. Like he used to pretend to sit on an invisible chair, and that's why you did it to the other kid. So I thought that would happen to the kid. I don't know.
That's so funny. Honestly, like getting in trouble when you're a kid is so I remember
it's traumatizing.
Yeah. But like I remember I was such a little shit because like I don't know. I remember specifically Mrs. Putt. I think she was my grade 2, grade 3 teacher. I don't remember. She loved me. I could do no wrong in this woman's eyes. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like I learned, I don't know, grade 2, grade 3. I learned all of the bad words, and I would just like say, and like like my Filipino parents would like get mad at me if I just said shut up. So like at school, I would just like let it out. But then like I was also such like a little cute, the shortest girl in the class, a little Asian girl, always got good grades. So my teacher loved me. And I remember two instances. Like, well, the first one, I was at recess and I just started taking Taekwondo, and this one little girl was like, show me what you're learning in Taekwondo. So I was doing like the Taekwondo thing that recess, and she's like, oh, but you're just punching air. She's like, and I'm like, yeah, because like you're supposed to only use it like when it's necessary or whatever. And she's like, well, punch me, let's see how you do it. And I like punched her, and then and then the next day her mom came to the school and was like, that girl punched my daughter. Then the teacher, Mrs. Putt, the one who loved me, was like, April, what happened? I was like, she told me to show my Taekwondo moves. And like Mrs. Putt always had my back. She was like, well, she asked for it.
She asked to see it. So what did you think was gonna happen?
Mrs. Putt always had my back, and I knew she did, and I was so manipulative. The other time there's this guy, Yvonne. We were always like competing. to be like smartest in the class or whatever. And one time, and I learned all my bad words. So I went to Yvonne one day and I was like, Yvonne, you bastard. And then like Yvonne goes and runs and tells Mrs. Putt, like, April called me a bastard. And then Mrs. Putt was like, oh my God. And then she goes, April, did you call Yvonne a bastard? I was like, no, I would never say that. And she turns to Yvonne and she's like, Yvonne, April would never do that. Stop lying.
Oh my God, you little manipulator.
Bro.
These poor people, they got gaslit.
Literally, poor Yvonne, poor Mrs. Putt.
Poor Yvonne.
But Mrs. Putt loved me, and I knew it, and I just used it to my advantage. But
oh my gosh, Mrs. Putt, if you're listening to this, we love
Mrs.
you.
Putt,
right? She sees this, Mrs. Putt, for you.
I did call him a bastard. I'm so sorry.
The truth comes out now. Yvonne, if you see this, we're sorry.
Oh, Yvonne, but. Tell me, what are some of the things about Filipino culture that you really remember growing up with your Filipino grandparents?
Eating a lot. My grandpa's from Pampanga, and so he loved to cook. He was the cook in the family. Every morning we had like the breakfast. It would be some random ass shit girl with like an egg, and they'd be like, "It's breakfast." It's just like pizza, lasagna. I don't know what it was. It was just some random stuff.
Something rice and an egg.
Rice and an egg, yep, and ketchup, Spam.
I love Spam. People hate on us for loving Spam.
What's new with Spam? It's good.
I started making Spam French fries.
Oh yeah, they have Spam here in Spain. Do they?
Yeah.
No. Oh, they do have it? Yeah. Because I was asking about it the other day, and my husband's like, "Yeah, I think they have it here."
I haven't found it yet, but like I love Spam, and I cut it into French fries, and I just toss it in my air fryer, and it's like Spam fries.
Yeah. I would say, cooking, like learning how to cook with my grandma or my grandpa. My grandma spoiling us with like shopping trips. Girl, she would take me and my sister and just like let us buy anything, everything.
Love shopping.
Girl, they love it. And I loved it because, my mom for a long time was a single mom. And so growing up and going school shopping and stuff, we didn't really have a big budget for buying clothes and stuff. So, and every time we would go buy clothes with my mom, like sometimes she would make us feel a little guilty, like in a weird, like for buying us clothes. So it was like this weird, kind of like, oh, you should be grateful to me because I'm buying you these clothes, because it might kind of make you feel almost bad, as a kid. But going with my grandma, she would just like let us go crazy and wild, and it was like a gift, and so I think it was a big blessing for me to have my grandma growing up and being able to buy whatever I wanted. Her. And then, going to family get-togethers and my grandpa shoving me in everyone's face, like, oh, you remember him? This is your Tito Tony. And I'm like, I don't remember him. I don't know who this is. And then they, I remember you when you were 2 years old. And I'm like, okay.
Like, how am I supposed to remember you? I was 2.
He was like shaking. Girl, my grandpa's gotten me in some messy situations for sure. We lived in San Diego. He told me, oh, I have your Tito Roy. He's in town. You need to meet him. He's like he's your uncle, blah, blah, blah. So my grandpa had me go meet this random man that was not a part of my family, was his friend from back in the war days. And I just had like this random like family dinner with somebody that I've never met in my life. It was just his friend.
Yeah. That sounds about right. It's everybody's a Tito, everybody's a Tita.
Everybody.
And like
everybody.
Yeah, you don't know how to explain it, because like I remember we had like a little group growing up, like my dad's friends from the Philippines who also moved to Canada, and we would all hang out. We'd all have family parties, but none of us were actually related. But we would all be Tito, Tita, and we would call each other cousins. So I remember we'd go, me and my cousin, who wasn't really my cousin, would go to high school together, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're cousins." They're like, "Are you?" And I'm like, "No, but we are."
It's true though. Yeah. I think it took me a long time to realize like, oh, these people are not like, these are not my real cousins. These are not my real aunts and uncles. And it took me a long time to just realize that was just the language. That was just like how we approached each other, which I think is endearing, and I like it. I think it's a
I really love that
within the culture.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, just like hanging out with my Filipino grandparents and my Filipino family and stuff. It's different. It's fun. It is fun. I have a Filipino friend. I don't know if I should say this, but she told me once, oh, the Philippines is the Mexico of the Asias.
Oh my God, someone said that to me too.
She said that to me. I was like, I just like, remember it forever now. And I'm like, wait, is that true? But I guess it kind of makes sense because like Mexicans, I don't know if you get mistaken for Mexican a lot, but I do.
All
I
the
get
time.
mistaken for Mexican all the time. And I know I have some Mexican friends that get mistaken for Filipino. And I think the
Mhm.
cultures are kind of similar too, like just in like family and like,
Colonization.
yeah. So I can see why that's kind of crossing over there.
No, yeah. Someone's actually told me that as well.
Yeah.
But I was curious because you are half Filipino, half Asian.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like you're not white enough or not Filipino enough?
No, I think now as an adult, no. Maybe when I was younger, I had issues with that and definitely depended on where I was living at the time that made me feel like that. Um,
Oklahoma.
yeah, girl, I was like trying to be super white in Oklahoma. I was like, you can't,
Uh-huh.
no. I was, yes. So it depends. I think really where you live, it really shapes who you are as a person and like your views and your values and how your
Mhm.
life goes and stuff. And so I think now as an adult, not so much. I think sometimes in Spain, I think people think I'm like South American sometimes,
Yeah.
or I've kind of been met with, I don't want to say it's like racism. I don't think it is that. But sometimes when I'm with my husband, they'll completely ignore me and just talk like directly to my husband. And I'm like just completely ignore that I'm even there. And I don't really care because like I've lived in California for a long time. And so like I'm used to just like, like not talking to everybody all the
Yeah.
time. But like I noticed that in the beginning and I was like, it was a slight thing. And I was like, kind of like,
Mhm.
hmm.
I also like, and I think this is actually kind of sad because I do feel prejudice
Yeah.
if I tell people I'm Canadian or I tell people I'm Filipino. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
think
yeah.
I genuinely feel like I get treated differently if I tell them I'm
Depending on your
Filipino.
answer. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Mhm.
think like I genuinely think like I feel I don't know. And it sounds bad, but sometimes I say I'm Canadian instead of Filipino, even though I'm so proud to be Filipino, but I
Yeah.
just like can't like deal with the
Yeah.
questions, you know?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And honestly, like someone said something that I think is like kind of true and kind of sad. Like imagine if we have kids with our Spanish
Yeah.
partners and we pick them up at school, like will they think we're their nanny?
Yeah. I've
Like
actually had, yeah, yeah. I mean, I actually, when I first moved here, I had a client. She's full Filipino, but like she lived in Ireland. So she speaks good English and stuff. And she came here. We were talking about a good time. She's like, "Oh, I want to invite you to our girls' meetup on Friday." She's like, "It's like with all the Filipino women and stuff." So I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll go because I'm new to the community. I want to make friends here too." So I went there to their little meetup, and I thought it was great because it felt really familiar to me. You know what I mean? Like they were all Filipina, and so I thought, "Oh, this is nice. It feels familiar, like my family and stuff." And they never invited me to go out with them again after that point. And I kind of thought, like, I wonder if I wasn't Filipino enough. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if
yeah.
it was because they were like full Filipina. And so I wonder if I just wasn't, because they were speaking Tagalog and I speak a little bit of Tagalog, but they were like interchanging between Tagalog and English. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. That's normal to me. Like, I grew up, hearing that. But I just felt like I wasn't Filipino enough to like, match with them in the future. And I was like,
I
whatever,
feel
whatever.
like that all the time. I feel like that all the
Yeah.
time. Even though I was born in the Philippines and I was raised between Canada and the Philippines,
Yeah.
I feel like all the time people say I'm not Filipino enough or I shouldn't
Yeah.
be talking about the Philippines or Filipino culture because
Yeah.
I'm too Canadian or I like grew up in like
Yeah.
North America. And it kind of like honestly, people can say
Yeah.
terrible things in my comments, but when
Yeah.
people invalidate who we
Your
are as
experience. Yeah.
Filipinos, that
Mhm.
for me, like, just like it's like
Yeah.
a knife to the heart because I
Yes.
love the Philippines,
Yes.
but also I think like another reason why I don't really like hang out with a lot of Filipinos in
Yeah.
Spain is because I don't speak Tagalog. I'm from
Yeah.
Cebu and we speak
Yeah.
Bisaya. And like for
Yeah.
those who are listening, like there's 150 languages in the
Mhm.
Philippines. Tagalog is the national language.
Yeah.
I'm from the middle of the Philippines in the province of the Visayas in Cebu, and we speak Cebuano or Bisaya. And like
Yeah.
I swear to God, when I was in elementary school, I don't know how many times I failed Filipino. But it's like everybody ask any Cebuano Bisaya person, like about like speaking Tagalog or studying Tagalog, they're like, oh my God, like we can't. It's so different. Like the
Yeah.
language is so different.
Yeah.
I can kind of understand, but like, no,
Yeah. Yeah. I
no.
mean, it's the same for me. It's like growing up, it was like my grandpa taught us words in Tagalog and things like that. But I surely am not fluent in Tagalog. And I don't know if they were expecting me to like switch fluently into Tagalog. But I was like, okay, girl, like I can understand some things, but I'm not gonna like, I'm not fluent in that way.
No, 100%.
But
Jumping to, how did you meet your boyfriend or husband? Sorry.
oh, so we've been together for 10 years. I met him on OkCupid, dating website. Yeah, do you remember OkCupid?
Oh, I remember. Okay,
That's an
Cupid.
old
Yeah,
one. That's an old one. So,
yeah.
okay, it was like in the kind of the beginning of like when online dating was like kind of still taboo, you know, it was like kind of
Mhm.
still taboo thing. And I met him 10 years ago on OkCupid. We did a long distance, you know, on Skype at the time. And then I think it was like 4 months into talking, I went to Madrid to meet him for the first time, really liked him. 6 months later, he came to the States. And then we just kept bouncing back and forth really for like 3 years. And then at some point, I was like, okay, I'm done with cosmetology school. So either you're going to have to move here or I'm going to move there. Like, we're going to get married or something because, like, I can't keep doing long distance for the rest of my life. So originally the plan was for me to graduate Cosmo school and come to Madrid. And I bought a ticket to come out here and get married and stuff in January. I was supposed to come here in September, but between January and September, I got cold feet. And I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know if this is the right decision. I don't know if I should do this. I'm in California at the time, Southern California. I'm like, I really think I should graduate and then learn here in San Diego more of my craft because I'm in like a beauty headquarters place of like, you know, the US. Like, I mean, California is amazing for that. So I told my husband, I said, listen, I said, I think for your job, he's a web developer. I said, I think you better come here because you can have more job opportunities in San Diego for web development. And I can have more job opportunities and learning opportunities here in San Diego. So between January and September of me trying to come out here, we had completely changed our plans. And we were like, okay, let's swap it. Now you're going to come out this way. And so he came out to San Diego. He got a job. I was doing hair in a salon, learning this and that. And then we decided at some point that we wanted to go back to Madrid. So we came back to Madrid. And then at that point, he was kind of qualifying for his US citizenship. And I was like, dude, we need to go back for US citizenship because that's amazing. You have 2 passports. Like, that's going to give you so much more opportunities. And he didn't want to come back. He was like, I don't want to go back to the US. Like, I'm tired of San Diego. I'm tired of the US. And I was like, dude, you better pull your bootstraps up. We're going to do it for a year, get your citizenship, and then we can go wherever you want in the world. You never have to fight with residency and all this crazy stuff
That's
again.
fair, yeah.
So we came back to the US, but we did not go West Coast. We went East Coast because we were only going to come for a year. And he said, well, I don't want to go back to the West Coast. I want to go to the East Coast because it'll be easier for us to transition back to Europe. And he wanted to go to the Northeast part. And I said, no way, like, I'm not going there. It's too cold. I'm not like, I'm not into snow. Like, I've done snow before. I don't want to go live somewhere cold. So I was thinking, where's the other place that I can live on the East Coast that's kind of similar to California in like weather and like kind of, you know, the vibe and
Florida.
stuff. So, yep, Florida. So I ended up picking Florida and I went to Southwest Florida. We set up shop there we were there for a year. He was able to get his citizenship processed in like 9 or 10 months. So it worked out perfectly. And I did lashes, training, and all this kinds of stuff there. And then we finally made the final jump back over to Spain. And that's kind of how we got here to this point now.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's a wild story. That's just like the very small part of it.
No, but I want to like rewind a little bit. The first time he went to the US in San Diego, how is it the K1 visa, the fiance visa? Did you get married? And then you got married there, and then he was able to get residency.
Yes. Exactly.
And like how was, in comparison to Spanish bureaucracy, how was that?
I would say it's definitely, if you're comparing the two, it's definitely a lot smoother. It's definitely a lot more organized. It's definitely a lot more, here, go online, fill out this form, pay this fee, send this thing in, and we'll process it for you. You get this confirmation number. You can check in on the process of, you know, your residency, your green card, your work permit, all that kind of stuff. So definitely a lot more streamlined and organized, I would say. I mean, here it's like to get my NIE appointment. It was like I was going crazy for 4 hours, like reloading the page, and then it was like falling, crashing, and I was like crying, like trying to get an appointment. Like, so yeah, it's a lot different. And I think it's funny because my husband, I think he remembered Spain from like 5 years ago, and so I think he kind of had like really good memories of Spain, obviously from like 5-6 years ago. So when we moved back to Spain after he had lived a good portion of his adult life in the US with US systems, coming back over here, I think he was kind of shocked because he was doing a lot of adult things in Spain that he wasn't doing obviously before he moved. So then he was like comparing everything to the US systems, and he was like, this is not good. This is unorganized. How can they do this? Like, yeah. And so he was like, I remember him calling his dad, that lives here in Madrid, and like literally complaining to his dad all the time. Like, I don't know if we made the right decision. This is just too hard. This country's going great. Yeah. I mean, he Spanish in his own country was complaining about all the systems because you don't know until you know, you know what I mean? And so I feel like, and that's what I really feel like a lot of people here, they just don't know what they don't know. You know what I'm saying? So if you don't know there's a better way to work things, then you're not going to complain as much because you just don't know. So that's what happened with him. And even with the house buying process, because we were in the process of buying a house in California. And so he was going through the, every step, escrow, find the house, model, all that kind of thing. And then we came here to buy a house, and it was like, it was just chaos, and it was crazy. And my husband's like, why am I paying the commissions before I even sign on the loan? And like, all this crazy stuff. And so he kind of had issues with how everything was working here in his own country.
I think that's, I think like, well, obviously we haven't gone, me and my partner haven't gone into home buying, but I remember when we were doing Pareja de Hecho, I think he genuinely like underestimated how difficult it is to do bureaucracy in Spain. And me being a foreigner, having to do this every year and knowing how hard it is. You have to have a cita previa. You have to do like, you have to have everything, 3 photocopies. I bring my entire freaking binder just in case because I'm so scared. He didn't get it. And I told him, I was like, you have to make a cita previa. You have to make a cita previa. And he was like, delaying it, postponing it. He was like, no, it's fine. I'll be able to get it. And then when he went online, he's like, oh my God, it's not for another 3 months. I was like, what did I tell you?
Surprise.
Like, please just like not listen to me. Like I told you.
Yeah. It's serious. I mean, thank God for my husband being here, because I think if I was here truly as like a foreigner that didn't speak the language and just didn't have that kind of support from family here, my husband being, from here, I don't know, man. I don't know if I would have jumped ship earlier and been like, I don't know, this just seems too hard. Like,
no, like I think like something very important to like put out there is there's a lot of people online saying like, come move to Spain, come to Spain. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
It is amazing. It is amazing. Come move to Spain. It's great. I love living here, but like, it's not, it's hard. Like,
it is hard though. I think it's been I always tell people, I think just moving abroad in general has been one of the things that has really fucked me up mentally the most in my life. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like, I've lived so many different places in the States, different cities and all this kinds of thing. I have a lot of, cultural like diversity in my head, different places and stuff. But moving to Spain, I mean, it really, you go through phases of like losing yourself, finding yourself, being confused with yourself, doubting yourself, like being proud of yourself. It's like, really, it's a mental like roller coaster. Like you'll never, like you don't understand it unless you actually do it. Like you can tell people these things, but until you're actually in those shoes, walking that path, you can't have empathy, like true empathy for somebody, because it's like, you just don't understand.
Yeah.
It's a crazy,
I love
crazy
how
thing.
you said that, because I feel like when you come to Spain, like me, we're very outgoing people. I feel like super friendly. It's not hard for us to make friends. But for me, when I came to Spain in a country where I didn't know the language, I didn't really know so many people, I felt myself get smaller.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like I felt myself get smaller, get scared. I didn't want to talk to people too much. I was shy. I became shyer. I started getting all of these insecurities that I never had before.
You lose yourself. You absolutely lose yourself. And then you start feeling sad. You start mourning the person that you were. And you're like, do I like the feeling of losing myself in this? Like, because this is not me, and I'm not recognizing who I am right now. Like, why am I feeling so lonely in a group? Why am I not talking to people? Why am I feeling so isolated here? So it's like, you really change. And so I've lost a lot of who I was in the States coming here, but in exchange, I've kind of built up a different personality here, a different person. So you gain things and you lose things. And so now looking back at it, I think it's not that I like the person I am more. It's just that these are two different versions of myself, because I think that, you do change into different versions of yourself through life. And I feel like I am on a different era or a different version of myself than I was in the US.
100%. And I think like, I think like sometimes, and I have to keep reminding myself, sometimes we're hard on ourselves, like
absolutely.
I feel like we have done so many things.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like we go into this like, oh my God, my life sucks. What the hell am I doing? Oh, I'm becoming a different person. Things are getting better. And then you make progress, but you're still not at that goal. So then when you see the goal still farther, you're like, what the heck am I doing? And then you kind of forget all of the things that you've done.
I think if you were to zoom out and look at it from a whole, look at it behind, you would see like, wow, I've made these huge momentous steps in this journey. But when you're like really kind of zoomed into it, you're looking at everything and you're like, oh my God, like I'm failing, or oh my God, like I'm not this is not where I want to be right now at this point. But like zooming out on it, like as a whole, like, a lot of people can't do what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people are too afraid to leave their house. They're too afraid of the comfort zone that they live in. But they want to, they want to do these things, but they're too afraid to go outside their comfort zone. So I think like for people that like us that are just exploring and being nomads and like living different versions of ourselves, I think it's true. You have to give yourself a pat on the back. It's an experience, and life is just an experience. That's all it is.
And I think it's very important to know that going out of your comfort zone can work out amazing, and it can also be it really can. Sometimes it's gonna be a like complete shit, but I think it's important that you just try.
But you know what? If you go outside your comfort zone, you create a new comfort zone. And you go outside that comfort zone, you create a new comfort zone. So now you're no longer within the original. Your comfort zone is now way huger of a circle than it was originally. So now things that would make you uncomfortable, you're like, I have life experience with that now. So now I'm not uncomfortable with this. So I can face this. I can do that. I've done this before,
Yeah.
Which is really a blessing. I mean, it's really a blessing. A lot of people don't have that opportunity.
Yeah, I know. I completely like, honestly, like, I feel like exactly what you said. I got out of my comfort zone, and now I'm in my new comfort zone, and I have to push myself to go out of this new comfort zone.
To go out of that new comfort zone, yeah.
It's just so funny how things work out. But talking about your business and your lashes.
Yeah.
Your lash business. Okay, so you went to cosmetology school in the US. And I'm assuming there's when you learned lashing, or
actually I learned lashing like 10 years ago, and actually it's a funny story how I learned it. I actually never wanted to do lash extensions, but I think that's the funny part of it. So I used to do you remember like 10 years ago there wasn't really lash extensions. I would go to like the Chinese nail shop and get those like cluster lashes, like with the hair glue, you know what I'm talking about? And they would just like put them on, and it would hurt so bad. But I was like, oh yeah, I have like lashes and stuff. So that's what me and my sister used to do for like $20, like 10 years ago. And then lashes kind of came in, and they were doing classic lashes 10 years ago. And my sister had a friend whose sister was learning. So she was like, oh, come to my sister's house. She's doing like a full set for like $60 for classics. So my sister at the time was like 16 or 17 years old. And she was like, hey, can you come to this lady's house? I want to be like a model for her classic lashes. So I said, okay, fine, I'm going to go. So I went to this lady's house. This lady did my sister's classic lashes for 6 hours, and they were not even done yet. And so at some point I was like, okay, we got to go. It's late. Like we have school tomorrow. So we left, we get in the car. We're like driving home. It's dark. And I just see my sister like look over at me in the dark as I'm like driving. And she's like, you know what you should do? And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, what, Dee? What? And she's like, you should learn how to do lash extensions so you could do mine for free. And I was like, no, absolutely not. No. I was like, I don't want to touch people's eyes. I don't want to be around people's eyes. That's nasty. Like I was so repulsed by the idea. I was like, no way. Like eyes creep me out. So anyway, I go home, I sleep on it. I wake up the next morning and like, when it's like a thought that just like keeps replaying in your head like a
Yeah.
broken record. And you're like, why do
It's
I
like
keep
a
thinking
little
this?
itch. It's an itch you
Yes,
can't
it is.
scratch.
It's like, and it was right here in the front of my head. And it was like, maybe you should though. Like, maybe you should. Like, it's not that expensive. Like, you can make some clients, you make your money back. Like, it could be a hobby, whatever. So I found myself in LA 2 weeks later taking a 1-day classic lash course. Did the classic lash course. I was kind of naturally good at it. I remember the trainer asking me if I had done lashes before, and I was like, no, this is my first time. And she was like, oh, you're pretty good at, like, just kind of naturally off the bat. And so I was like, okay, great, whatever. So I went back to, I was living in the Inland Empire at the time in Menifee. So I went back to my mom's house. I was living there, and I just put a Groupon out just for fun. I was like, okay, I'm going to do a Groupon for like $30 lashes. And literally within that week, I already had like 7 people book. And so I was like, oh my God. I was like in shock. I was like, oh my God, they want to book with me. So I had like this little massage table like in my mom's living room. And I had these people come over and I just did like lashes, I did like 7 clients. And then I took the Groupon off after like 10 clients. And then I just did lashes, I think for like $60 a set or something. And I was booking because I was like one of the only people in that whole area that did lashes. So like by default, I just kind of was busy. So I did that, made my money back pretty quickly. And I kind of liked what I was doing. And then at that point, I decided that I was going to go to cosmetology school because I wanted to do hair. That was the reason I went to cosmetology. It wasn't to get my license to do lashes. It was to do hair. So I went to do hair and did lashes throughout my Cosmo school to kind of help me pay for tuitions and like shows and stuff like that. So that helped. And then got my Cosmo license. Then I moved to San Diego. My husband came over to meet me. We lived in San Diego together. And I started working at a high-end salon doing hair because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to learn how to do hair. So I did hair. Word got out that I did lashes, or I knew how to do lashes. And so they were like, oh, we're going to change you over to the lash girl. And I was like, no, I don't want to be the lash girl. I want to be the hair girl. And so I constantly fought with the salon over like them booking me hair clients and lash clients. And so all of a sudden I stopped kind of doing hair so much and I started doing lashes in the salon. And they were like, oh, we really like you for lashes. You're getting booked, blah, blah, blah. We want to make you like a little area here in our salon where you can do lashes and stuff. But to be honest, I wasn't really liking the salon. It was very competitive. Like I said, it was high-end salon. We did a lot of YouTubers, Instagram, like celebrities, like, B-list celebrities. So for me, I just didn't really like the environment. Felt like it wasn't authentic to me. I felt like I was showing up being like a fake version of myself. And you can't do that for so long because at some point you just start, like, it wears you down. Like, it just really wears you down. So at that point I said, you know what, I think I'm going to take it out. Like, I don't want to, because they want me to sign a contract where I'll be like locked in for a year. And I was like, no, I'm not, I'm not signing any contract. Like, I'm out. So I left there and I ended up at a barber shop because at that point I was like, I need something that is just like, more chill, so I started doing men's hair and I just did haircuts, men's hair. We did like a few women here and there. But that's what I did for like another year. And then after that point, there was like some more drama in the salon. I said, you know what? I'm kind of over the salon. At that point, I've been doing hair for 3 years. So I went back to doing lashes out of my house and I just did lashes at my house for like a few months. And then I was like, you know what? I want to just get a normal 9-to-5 job. Like, I'm at that point. I just want a normal 9-to-5 job. So I went and I found like a normal admin job, completely stopped doing hair. I did lashes only on the weekends. So that was like my weekend money. So I did lashes on the weekend, Monday through Friday. I worked at a regular office, answering phones, emails, all that kind of stuff. And I really liked doing that. I thought it was really chill. I liked my office workers. I just really liked.
It's like a lazy girl job.
Yeah, it was a lazy girl. And that's what I needed because I had been really hustling and stuff. And I just really needed just to calm down for a couple of years and just take it easy and figure out what's my next step here. And I liked that my paycheck was like every 2 weeks, I knew how much money I was going to make. Because when you're doing freelance work or you're like in a salon, sometimes it can be really, you don't know how much you're going to make. You don't know if you're going to have clients that week. So it can be very unstable. So I wanted something very stable where it's like, okay, every 2 weeks I get a paycheck. That's how much I'm going to make. And I know I'm going to leave at 5 o'clock. I know I'm going to come at 9. I'm not going to have extra hours. I'm not going to have to come here, all the crazy stuff. So I did that. And then COVID hit. And I had been at the office for 2 years, and my crazy boss was like, "Oh, we're all going to work still." And I was like, "I don't think it's safe." Because you remember, like, originally COVID, like, we didn't know what we were
Yeah.
dealing with. So scary. And I was like, you know what? I'm not coming in here to risk my life over like $15 an hour to like risk my life for COVID. I don't even know what this is. So I said, I'm out. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do this job anymore. So I put my 2 weeks in. I went back to my house, and I just continued doing my clients that I had been seeing like over the last couple of years, which you should not be doing. That was not okay to do. But that's what I was doing. And then word got out that that's what I was doing. And so I started building more clientele because they would say, oh, I know this, my lash girl, blah, 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 blah. So I was very, very busy during COVID, which was not a good thing. You should not have been doing that. But that's how I built up my clientele, really. And then COVID, the warnings, they were out and stuff, and they said, okay, no more like closures and stuff. And then I just kept doing lashes, and I was making way more money doing lashes in my house than I ever was doing hair, doing, my admin job. So I was like, okay, this is working. This is fine. Like, this is even better for me. It's more convenient. So that's
So
how
like,
lashes from like that point to like that point.
so let's talk about lashes, because I'm a lash
Yeah.
girly. I've
Yeah.
always been a lash girly. I remember, I think the first time I did lashes was definitely like maybe like 2012.
24.
Like,
Okay.
yeah, so 2012, and I did classic set, but back then, I feel like nobody knew how to do lashes on Asian eyelashes.
No,
Nobody knows how
no.
to do it, and it was a struggle. So then I like hopped off of lash extensions for a while because
Yeah.
nobody just did it right, and then
Yeah.
I would just do strip lashes. But then I
Yeah.
came here, I found someone who was able to like
Yeah. Yeah.
do my Asian eyelashes. Not
Yeah.
only Asian eyes, but like Asian eyelashes are straight and short
Yeah.
and sparse.
And not only that, but they can be really deceiving too, because Asian lashes are straight, they're short, they're thin. But the thing is that the porosity of the actual hair is low. So then you have to use other things to bring up that porosity to a higher porosity so that the lashes stick, because of a low porosity cuticle like that, it means that the shaft is closed. So when you apply the glue, it often slides off. So that's why some of my Asian clients would have worse retention. And not only that, but it's weak. So a lot of the Asian lashes, they want to have thicker, fuller lashes to fill in all of those gaps that they have. But the problem is that it's also a weak hair. So it doesn't hold weight that well. So it's like, it is a complicated lash to work on.
Oh, okay. So I'm not crazy. Like
No,
Asian lashes are difficult.
they
So
are difficult. Yeah.
so you're saying, so what are the tips to like getting these lashes? Because I love, what I get is Russian volume.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but like I feel like I get Russian volume because it doesn't look so crazy on me, because I
Yeah.
have Asian eyelashes and I don't even
Yeah.
have that many eyelashes for them to
Yeah.
glue things on anyway.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. I think Asian eyes in general, I think that they do well with a volume. I wouldn't put like a classic on an Asian eyes just because they have sparse lashes, and that can often look like just like a few sticks. So I
Mhm.
do think that volume lashes are going to be a better option for Asian eyes. Um, as far as like the curl type goes, it really depends on the client's eye shape and their
Mhm.
face shape, and also monolids too play a part, because some Asians have like more monolid eyelids, more round eyelids. So that
Mhm.
plays a part too in like the curl type that you're going to choose. If you're having poor retention, I definitely would put some sort of like primer or something that's going to open up the cuticle a little bit before applying the lash extension. And I would definitely use a wrapping technique on Asian eyelashes. I definitely wouldn't use like pre-mades or anything that's just going to stick to the top. I would use something that's going to really curve into their lash and keep it hold.
Oh, this is girl, what a professional you are.
Yeah.
So the way you're talking is like so teacher mode. And I know you
Mm,
also do trainings and classes. When
I
did
do.
you decide to do trainings and classes in the US, right?
In the US, yeah. And actually, funny, when I was in San Diego, I had several people ask me if I did training, and I just didn't feel like confident enough at that point in my career to offer, because I thought to myself, if I'm going to be a true teacher, I need to have all the answers, right? And that's
Mhm.
how I was kind of thinking, is if I go to a class and they ask me something and the teacher's like, I don't know, let me look at it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just felt like it would look bad. So it took me a few more years after that point to finally feel like, okay, I feel like I have enough,
Mhm.
experience here to be able to teach. And so it wasn't until Florida, when I got into Florida, that I noticed that there was a gap in the market for training in the area that I was in. And I thought to myself, okay, I'll open training here and we'll just see how it goes. And so the first student I had, I offered a discount because I was like, I don't want to charge her full price because she's my first student. I kind of want to use this as an experience to kind of see how the class is going to go, how I'm going to formate this class, how the presentation is going to be. So I gave her a discount, and she came very sweet, very, very sweet student. I'm still in touch with her even to this day. And I just did it out of my apartment in Florida. And it's kind of like a hangout. I treat my classes as two girls just hanging out, learning, chatting. We have lunch. I usually buy them like breakfast or something when they come in. We have breakfast together, just kind of take the walls down so that it's not as like, oh, you're here in a class, And I don't like to do large classes because I feel like it makes people not want to ask questions, because if they feel like there's a large group, it makes people kind of more shy. Like, oh,
yeah, everybody says there's no stupid questions, but nobody wants to be the one to ask a stupid question.
Exactly. So I only take like 2, maybe 3 people max in my classes because I like to keep it intimate. That way people can ask questions, talk and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I did in Florida, I was doing like 2 to 3 students a month. And that's only because it was just me. Like I was still running my marketing. I had an online brand. I had an online course. I had an in-person course. I had all of my clients still. And it was only me running all of this by myself. So I was really hustling and like running myself into the ground really hard. And I was, still doing students. So I could only take like 2 to 3 students a month.
Yeah.
There's really good money in that, at least in the US. And I really loved what I did. I loved teaching. I felt like at that point in my career, I felt like this is really something that I truly love. Like I loved helping students feel like they had, an opportunity to be financially free and to make something for themselves that could be something that could, help them to be, better in the future. So I felt like I was helping other people. I was providing value to other people. And I feel like here in Spain, I feel like I've lost that, kind of like feeling of like having value or like providing value to people here. And I think it is because of like the language barrier too. Like I speak Spanish enough to like obviously have clients, a basic conversation. But as far as like chemistry, science, those kinds of technical terms, medical terms, I don't think that my language is that high, right? Like at that level to be doing like an 8-hour class talking about medical and technical chemistry and scientific terms in Spanish, so it's like, it's kind of put me in a place where I've kind of had to like hide that or like put it on the back burner.
But I think that's something we talked about previously, like about sometimes when you move to a different country, you feel more insecure and smaller, especially with that language barrier. But like you mentioned before, a couple years ago, they asked if you were doing trainings and you said you weren't ready. And I feel like you're just going through that exact same process
it could
here
be,
in a different language. So I'm sure that you're going to do trainings and you'll get that back in due course. But my question
poco.
Yeah. But my question is, I'm also curious to know, like, so your business model in the US and Spain, obviously you've had to adapt for Spain. In the US, you did lashes with your clients, you had your trainings, you mentioned ebooks. This one time, I was like, I went into a rabbit hole with Kylie Jenner's lash artist, and I saw that she created her own lash extensions. She did trainings as well. She opened physical stores. Like she would train these people. And I think, to be fair, the girl that does my lashes here in Madrid, I think she like copy pasted, because she started off doing trainings. She hired all of the girls that she did training. She opened a brick and mortar shop or like salon. And like now those girls work for her. And like, is that something you thought about?
I think, gosh, a lot of my clients, especially here, they ask me like, oh, will you open a salon soon? Because I also do hair here. I cut hair. And it wasn't something that I came here to do because usually lashes keeps me busy enough. But like a lot of my expat foreign clients here, they're like, I really need a haircut, but I don't want to go to the salon because I don't speak Spanish and I don't know. You know what I mean? So I'm like, well, I also happen to know how to cut hair. I mean, I did it for several years. So I also cut hair here too. And so a lot of them were asking me if I would open a salon where I would like, hire hairstylists and like brow artists and stuff. And so, I mean, I've thought about it, but to be very honest with you, I think that Spain is a country that kind of punishes entrepreneurs. Like, I hate to say it in
Wait,
that way,
yes, no,
but
yes,
this is not like a great place if you want to be an entrepreneur or open a business. Between taxes, autonomo, bureaucracy, it kind of just makes it really hard, you know. And I've sat down and I've talked to my husband about opening a location and like the logistics of everything between product cost, overhead cost, rent, business licenses, certificates, taxes, the autonomo every month, you know, all of these things adding up. I'm like, you know, and I can't charge, you know, that much for lashes out here than I would, like, for example, in California or Florida.
yeah,
And so I'm like, at the end of the day, how much money am I going to make per hour? And is it worth it? You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like, it's like, am I going to run myself into the ground for 10 years an hour? At the end of the day, you know.
That's actually so interesting because I had that conversation recently about how we think that Spain punishes entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
genuinely, and I
Yeah,
think and I think that's something, one of my most viral videos was like the
yeah,
Spanish dream. And I think an underlying thing to
yeah,
that is that a lot of the times, even in schools, public schools, concertado schools, private schools, a lot of the times students, young people in Spain are taught to take exams, taught to be employees,
yeah.
not taught to be entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah,
feel like that's why everybody wants to be a funcionario,
yeah,
because like they're just taught to be employees. They're taught
yeah, yeah,
to take these exams, pass the exams, get a job for life.
yeah,
And I think one
yeah.
of the reasons is because being an entrepreneur here is so hard.
It is hard. Yeah, it is hard. And my husband, he's a web developer. He still works for the company that he originally got the job for in California. And so he's out here as an autonomo. And right now, I think he's paying like, he just got a tax like raise, really. They're like, oh, yeah, the 10% cut that he had the first year. He just got that taken off. So I think he was telling me like between everything that he's paying like 45% of his income to taxes out here. And
That's
between
wild.
autonomo, the taxes and everything. And we had a serious conversation the other day, and he told me, he said, listen, he said, if it gets to the point that they really start like taking so much from me out here, and we get to the point that we're up to our necks, he's like, we might have to think of a plan B. You know what I mean? Like, because the taxes, it's a punishment for him as the middle class. You know what I mean? Because out here they consider him rich, you know, out here for how much he makes, but then for how much they take, you know what I mean? It's like it's a total punishment for him. And then the autonomo and everything, it's like, it just, yeah.
Yeah. No, no, no.
It's not good. I don't know how to explain it. It's like
No, no. And then sometimes I think like everybody when they move, I myself have felt that the same. Move
yeah.
from one country to another country, there's a moment where you doubt, like, did I make the right decision?
Yeah.
Is all of these struggles, is it really meant to be this hard? Do you know
Yeah.
what I
No,
mean?
I had that thought many times, because I've lived in places where everything was kind of easy for me. Like, everything was just kind of flowing, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that went off without a hitch. Oh, okay, I'm making clients. Blah, blah, blah. And then here it was like, I felt like it was a really bumpy landing. Like, I felt like we just ran into so many closed doors and like so many obstacles. And I thought to myself many times in the beginning, like, is it really meant to be this hard? Is the universe trying to tell me that I'm not really on the right path here? Like, I just feel like
Mhm.
this is just way too bumpy, you know?
Opening up your lash business here in
Yeah.
Spain, what has been some of the most difficult obstacles?
In the beginning, language barrier for me. I've been open for now a year and a half, and from like the first day to like now, a big improvement in language. But just being comfortable with speaking Spanish to people, just being like having to listen to people explain what they want or issues that they have, and being able to like understand what they're telling me and being able to like have a reply to that. That was a big issue in the beginning, because obviously everybody's looking for familiarity. And I always try to be like somebody that people feel familiar with. And so it's a different personality, me speaking Spanish, than it is me speaking English. You know what I'm saying? So I
Mhm.
feel like with my Spanish clients, I felt like I couldn't really have that connection, the same connection that I would with like my English speaking clients. So I think in the beginning, I think it was language. Now it's not so much of a problem for me now. Like, I'm more comfortable now. I don't feel scared. Like, oh, you speak Spanish, I'm scared. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to talk to her or something like that. So probably just that. And location for me. This was something that I did not realize being somebody that lives from a car-centric society where everybody drives in a car, and if you're 15, 20 minutes from a city center, that's considered close where I come from. Here, that is considered far. Like, you're on another island. Like, if you're not in the city bubble, like, you just don't exist. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was something that I did not realize coming to like a very walkable kind of like metro and public transportation. So my options for clients out here are very limited because I just have to work with the people that have a car in this like kind of outer zone. I have a lot of clients in the city center that would like to see me, but they don't have a car. And the metro system out here is not well connected to where I live out here. So I miss a lot of opportunities from the city, like clientele. So I just have to kind of market myself well to the suburb people.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, it's lashes here is not as popular as it is in the US. So it's like, you know what I mean? So I feel like my choice in clientele has it's not as high as like I would have in the US.
So from what you're saying, I'm assuming the amount of clients you're getting in Spain is less than in the US.
Yeah.
Are you at a place in your business where you're happy with the amount of clients you have? Or are you still thinking of ways to grow?
In the beginning, it's so funny. In the beginning, I had a really capitalistic mindset, obviously from where I came from, right? So I was definitely very capitalistic mindset. I was like, I need to grow, I need to market, I need to network. I mean, I even went so far as to like create groups here. Like we have the Girls in Valencia group, we have the Eliana and Surrounding group, we have WhatsApp groups, all these groups that I created so that I could network with people, market my business, and also make friends too, because I also wanted to like have friends here in this area. I would go to networking events with people. I would constantly be on Instagram. I would be constantly interacting, engaging with people, in my area and stuff. And so I was very much into the, like we need to hustle and grow. And at some point, I just noticed that it kind of plateaued. And it was like, whatever I did, it was just plateauing. And I was like, so at some point, it's like, you feel like you're putting so much effort in and you're not getting anything back. So at some point, you kind of slow down and you're like, is it really worth? And I think I did that for like 6 months where I was like hardcore, like 100%. So I was like, I'm not giving up. I'm posting every day, multiple times a day, engaging every day, DMing, like, you know what I mean? And at some point I was like, it is what it is. And I think I've talked to other clients that I have here that have, brow businesses, makeup businesses and stuff that I do their lashes. And similar story with everybody. And so when I started hearing similar stories with everybody, I was like, okay, it's not just me. Because in the beginning, I started thinking like, oh, it's me. Like I'm doing something wrong. My lashes aren't good enough. My marketing's not good enough. Like I'm not good enough. I don't speak Spanish. You start feeling all of those things where you're like, oh, it's a me problem. And then you start realizing, no, it's just the environment. It's just the environment that you're in. One, it's not popular. You can't force a market that's not there. You can't sell flip-flops in Antarctica. Like, if it's not there yet, it's not there yet. So I just had to come to terms with like, it is what it is. I'm happy with the clientele that I have. I do a few people a week, which is fine for me because I did come here to kind of semi-retire myself. I worked so hard for so many years in the US, and it started making me not like what I did. You know what I mean? It started becoming like a chore, a job, and I started to fall out of love with what I was doing. And I really wanted to come here and kind of semi-retire myself so that I could do what I liked as a hobby, which was the original reason I started this, was just to make a little extra money and have it be a hobby. And so now I feel like kind of full circle, circling back around. That's kind of where we're ending, this journey here, because I don't know if I want to do lashes in 5 years or whatever. I really don't know what the next, era of my life is. We never know. And it's always
we never know. Yeah.
So
no, but I think that's so amazing. Like you were able to rebuild your business in different iterations in multiple cities, in multiple countries.
Yeah.
And like, girl, you need a break.
It is tiring. It's mentally, it's exhausting. And I do take like times. I think right now I'm kind of on a social media break right now where I'm kind of not posting a lot. I'm kind of not online a lot because I think mentally, it feels really nice to like not be on social media all the time.
Yeah,
but it's also
so
really
too.
nice to just be off and just not look at it, not be sucked into it. So
I feel the exact same way. I'm making a podcast, but I made the podcast because I want to. Like, if this has been like
because you
on my mind and
Yeah.
it's been my passion project. I make no money off this podcast, but like, I just think it's fun. Now for the nitty gritty. This is something I've always wanted to know. tell me about buying your house in Spain, because
Yeah.
this is my life goal. I want to eventually invest and buy a property in Spain. And I literally had a bit of like a moment the past couple of months. I've been kind of just feeling like I'm in a pit of despair. Like,
Yeah.
no matter what I do, no matter how much I save, no matter how much
Uh,
I like restrict myself, it feels like the finish line just keeps getting farther
yeah.
and farther. And
Yeah.
I've just been really like a bit down about that.
Yeah.
But seeing other people being able to achieve that goal of mine kind of gives me a
Yeah.
bit of like hope and motivation. So I'm really curious to your process.
Yeah. So I will tell you as much as I understood from the process, because my husband's Spanish. So he was the one that was doing all the transactions, all of the paperwork, all the stuff. And I was kind of standing like third person off to the side, like kind of trying to get information so that I could tell other people like kind of how this is working. Um, but the first thing when we came here was we needed to figure out where we wanted to live. So that was down to, I think we were between like Malaga and Valencia. And I think a lot of people were following. That's where a lot of people came on, where they kind of started following, like, okay, like, where's this girl going to pick, you know? So we ended up in Valencia just because it was more affordable for housing. Malaga, Costa del Sol, girl, it's so
Yeah.
expensive. It's so expensive down there. So we were like, okay, maybe we need to rethink. So we went to Valencia. We had kind of like, I don't want to say it was a difficult list, but we wanted something that was brand new, that was already built, right? That's very a hard check mark, because a lot of these places you go and they give you like a 3D render and they're like, okay, this is going to be built in like 2 or 3 years, but you have to buy it now off of a 3D
Yeah.
render before even looking at it. And you're like, okay, so finding a house that was already new and built was hard. We wanted 4 bedrooms. We wanted a certain kind of layout because I do lashes. I wanted the room to be like in the front of the house versus like the back of the house. And we wanted a certain kind of neighborhood. We wanted it to be near. So we had kind of hard check marks, I would say, for Spain. Not in the US, these wouldn't be hard check marks because, you know, they have the new builds and you go to the neighborhoods and you walk through the model homes and everything's decorated. You know what you're going to buy. But here it doesn't work like that. So we ended up finding this house. They had just put it up on the market just that day. And one of the realtors was like, oh, let's go look at it. And so we came over here, we looked at the house, we liked it. They're like, okay, well, if you like this house, you're going to have to give us $10,000, or no, sorry, it was 1,000 euros to hold the house, like a deposit. And then you'll have 7 days to get your mortgage in order. So we paid the 1,000 euros and to hold the house. And then we went to the bank and we started getting our mortgage in order because we were going to take a mortgage. We weren't going to be able to pay cash for I think, how much is this house? Like 355,000 was how much the house
That's
was listed
really
for.
good. That's how much an apartment is here.
Yeah,
So
I'm telling you, that's why people always complain, like, oh, you chose an expensive house. I'm like, not really, though. Like, have you seen some of the apartments in places and some of the rent? I'm like, I don't think I chose like the most expensive, like,
that's
and
really good.
it's really good, right, for a brand new house and stuff. So it was 355. Then you have to add 10% taxes to new builds. I think the tax is less if you buy like an already built home, but we
I
had to
think
add that.
it's
So
6.
yeah, 6 for the already built and then 10 for the new. And so it ended up being like 389 or something like that total for the house. So we went to go get the mortgage done. Now, this is difficult because my husband's a Spanish citizen here, right? I'm an American citizen, but I have residency here. However, my husband makes all of his money in USD abroad, right? So that's important to know because he went to his bank here and they basically told him that his case was like very difficult, like kind of impossible case, because they're going to consider him like a non-resident, even though he's a citizen here, because the fact that he makes all of his money in USD. So that was kind of a crazy. And we went to several banks and they just told us like, we're not even going to look at you. We're not even going to look at you. So they would turn us away at the door. The only bank that would look at us at that point was La Caixa. That was our only option. So we went to La Caixa. They started the mortgage process and they were like, okay, well, do you have 2 years of like, transactions into this bank account? And we're like, no, because we've been living in the States for the last 2 years. So we're like, no, we don't have that. They're like, okay, do you have 2 years of Spanish tax, tax paperwork? No, because we haven't been living here the last 2 years. They're like, okay, so are you married here in Spain? And we were like, no, but it's like in registration, like because we were working through like processing our US marriage into the Spanish one. They're like, okay, does she have an NIE? no, we're still waiting on the appointment. So it was like a case of like really impossible factors. So
Oh
they're like
my
looking at us like, so then they're like, okay, what's the interest rate? So we got everything changed around at the bank, and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna have to process you as like kind of like non-residents because of your USD. So they told us you're gonna have to pay 30% down instead of 20. You're going to have to get a variable mortgage. We're not going to give you a fixed mortgage. And we're going to give you the higher APR instead of like the lower APR that like you would get for like a resident mortgage and stuff. So our APR ended up being like 4.5. We took a 20-year loan, and then we had to pay 30% upfront cash. Then you have to have more money for your notary fees, transfer fees, your realtor fees. So at the end of the day, we were short money, and we had to borrow money from my father-in-law to get this place because my husband and I had like, I think we had $110,000, which
Which is
was
a
a lot
lot.
of money. That is
That is
not
a lot
a
of,
small amount of money. And
girl, that's
I
a
thought
lot to save.
I was hustling in the US doing lashes. I mean, all that money came from me hustling that year in Florida when I was like full on, like I think 75,000 of that was just from me like saving and hustling like that one year. And then the rest my husband brought from like another account that he had. So it wasn't like a small amount of money like that. I thought that was very significant. And I thought, wow, this is pretty crazy. I started thinking to myself, if this is how much money I need, I'm like, how are people that are making less salary here, how are they ever going to be able to save to put 100,000 euros? Like, how is that going to work? You know what I mean? Like, and they're already paying most of their pay to rent, which is like crazy in some of these places. So it was kind of like, it didn't really make sense to me. And I was kind of going crazy over the whole thing. And so anyway, we put down the 110 plus my father-in-law gave us like 30,000. So we ended up paying like 140,000 or something for this. That's almost half of the price of this house.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, dang. So then it left us with like no money for like furniture and stuff. So we moved in, it was like nothing in here. So no money.
Girl. No, but that's wild because that is almost half the price of the house.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And like you have basically you still have to pay 70%.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. And you know, in the States for first time home buyers, I think it's 3.5%. That's what you have to pay down, 3.5%. So going from 3.5% to being told, oh, you're going to owe 30%, you know, down. And then you're going to have to do like probably another like 5 to 10% in fees. And it was crazy because in that first week when we had put the deposit down for the 1,000, by the end of the 7-day mark, we did not have a mortgage secured. Usually in the States, you kind of go and get pre-qualified and they tell you, okay, this is what we're going to give you for the mortgage. You are qualified for a mortgage. Then you go look for a house, right? Because that makes sense.
That's how it works.
But here, it's like you go look for a house and then you go after you pay a deposit and then you try to get a mortgage. Like, so it's like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of the opposite.
I feel that's a little backwards to me because like
it is a little backwards. Don't you want to know that you're qualified and you can actually get a mortgage and how much the bank is actually going to give you so that you can go look with your budget? It's kind of like here. It's like I told my husband, I said, well, what's our budget for the house? He said, you just find one. I said, but how am I going to find one if I don't know the budget of the house? You know what I mean? Like, how am I going to find one if I don't know how much the bank's going to give me? He's like, well, you just calculate that yourself. And I'm like, but how do I, like, I'm like, it was driving me nuts. I was like, how do I qualify? Like, how do I tell myself? So anyway, the 7 days passed. We didn't get the mortgage, you know, obviously with all the issues we were having. So they were like, okay, well, we have other buyers for this house. So you're going to have to pay us, what they wanted me to pay like 30,000 euros to continue holding this house. And I still don't know if I have a mortgage here. I still don't know if I'm going to be approved. And they're like, you have to pay 30,000, right?
You don't know if you're going to get the house.
And I'm like, I don't even know if I have a mortgage at this point. So we negotiated with them, the realtor, and they were like, okay, fine, we'll just say 10,000. So then we paid them 10,000 euros to keep holding the house. And they're like, okay, you have 30 days to get your mortgage arranged. So during that 30 days, we were going insane, crazy stress, calling the bank every day. Customer service here with the bank, not the greatest. The guy was ignoring our emails. The guy was ignoring our calls. We had to like literally drive into the center of Madrid every day to like bother this guy. He was very rude to us, very horrible, like just a bad experience. So anyways, we were hammering him all the time. We're like, okay, our 30 days is running out. Like we're going to have to pay more money or we're going to have to drop out and just lose 11,000 euros and just call it a wash and say, well, you know, we just lost money on the whole deal. So finally he was able to like secure everything. Everything was good. And then we went to we went to the notary to sign papers and all that kind of stuff, and then get the keys, hand over the check. There was a banker that came to like give the check at the notary and stuff. And the notary I thought was kind of interesting because everybody showed up. It was like the builder's wife, the builder's cousin, the realtor's like boss, the banker's like coworker, the notary, the other. So we had like 12 people in this huge conference room, and I was like super nervous, and I was like, I'm like, what is going on? Why do we have 12 people in this room right now? Like, this is
Where
crazy.
are these people when they weren't answering your emails?
Right, but they'll show up for money, right? They'll show up for a check. When the check is here, they're like, okay, here they are, right? So they were all in there, and I remember we got in a fight with our realtor because when we had paid the 10,000 euros to like continue with 30 days of holding so that we could get the mortgage, the realtor was like, okay, you need to pay me my my fee or whatever. And we're like, why are we going to pay you the fee when we don't even know if we have a mortgage? We don't even know if we own this house yet. But she was like, that's how it works in Spain. You have to pay the realtor's fee now when you sign this part of the paperwork or something, or else, because technically you've kind of entered into a contract of buying the house. Like you've signed a contract that says that basically you are going to follow through with buying this house. So even though you don't have a mortgage secured and you don't really have this house yet, you still have to pay the fee. So we kind of went back and forth crazy because in the US, you don't pay those fees until you have like the keys in your hand. Everything's like, done deal. Okay, we're secured. Here's your money. So yeah, she kind of was angry and upset about it. We decided to pay cash to her because she said, if you don't pay cash, I'm going to write you an invoice and you're going to have to pay 21% on the invoice. So we were like, dang. So we had to go grab cash for her because I was like, well, I don't want to pay an extra 21%, off of her invoice. But yeah, the whole thing was like really, really messy. And I remember there being a lot of crying, a lot of stress. A lot of my husband calling his dad, like, I don't know what's going on. This is a crazy process. This doesn't make sense.
No, I'm stressed just listening to it. Like,
yeah, it was not, because we went through the process of buying a house in California, and it's very mainstream. It's like, okay, we like this area. Let's go look here. They have a whole bunch of new houses. You go in, you look at the model home. It's nicely decorated. You're like, okay, this is what I'm going to buy. You go talk to the sales agent. They're like, okay, here's what we have available. I like this one. Okay, give us a deposit. Okay, we get a deposit. You have 3 months to secure your mortgage, which you already have because you've been pre-qualified. So then you go back to the mortgage, you open escrow, and then you close, and that's it. But here it was like, it was like everything was on fire.
When you said 7 days, I was like, you're not getting a mortgage in 7 days.
Hell no. I don't know why I gave you 7 days. I was like, no, hell no.
You're not even going to get an appointment at the bank in 7 days. Like, what? Like,
hell no.
Like, what? That is wild. Okay, well, can't wait.
I mean, maybe your experience is different. You have like a different background. Maybe you don't make all your money in USD, and you've been living here for a while. You have a standard paychecks. You have all those things that they're going to ask for that we didn't have. So it could be a different experience.
Yeah, no, but like, first of all, I think you got a great deal on your house.
I think so too.
I think that's amazing for what it is. 4 bedrooms in like what would be a gated community.
Yeah.
Like type of deal, like amazing. Yeah. And a lot of tears, probably a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get that house.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And hopefully you guys are happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely happy with the house. I think that in the beginning too, it was like the first 3 months I was living in my father-in-law's bedroom, in his house, and I was not happy at all. I was going crazy. Mentally, I was like not right. I was going crazy. Then we moved into the apartment in Torrejon in Madrid, in the suburb, and we were in this loft. It had no AC. It was like facing the sun through like June, July, August, and I was dying in there. I had like mold in the bathroom, and so I was not happy there either. And so finally, when we got the house, it was like, okay, I can have my stuff. I can have my space. I can have all the things, that make me happy. And so I think it increased my mood a lot and increased my happiness in being here a lot, because for the first 9 months I was in Madrid in like a random apartment in my father-in-law's house, and I wasn't happy. So
I can imagine. Anyways, I wanted to wrap this up because we've been talking for a while, girl.
Yeah, we have.
But I feel like I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Yes.
I feel like we've only like touched the iceberg, or like
tip of the iceberg.
Congratulations. Tip of the iceberg. Congratulations on your house. Congratulations on your business and moving to Spain. thank you so much for coming. I've been wanting to talk to you for
Yeah.
a while, and now I have your WhatsApp, so we'll be just like I'll send it. I'll be sending you voice notes every couple of weeks, checking
Yes.
in.
Like,
But
hello.
yeah, thank you again so much for coming on to the Comfort Zone podcast. If you guys enjoyed this episode, if you enjoyed listening to Kelsey, make sure to follow her. Her Instagram and TikTok is Kuma Lash
Lash
Studio.
Studio.
Yep,
Yeah.
correct. So Kuma Lash Studio, and she does lashes. If you're in the Eliana or Valencia area,
Yes.
make sure to check it out because those lashes are giving me back. Remember when like Kylie and Kendall had those like your wet lashes?
Yeah.
That's what it's giving me.
Mm-hmm.
So she's a great, talented lash tech. If you're in the Valencia area, go ahead. If I lived in Valencia, I'd be going to you 100%. Like, no doubt. I'm a lash girly through and
Yeah,
through.
yeah.
But yeah, thank you again for coming. If you guys enjoyed this, make sure to follow Kelsey and also the Comfort Zone on Instagram. You can also check some of the clips on my personal TikTok at April D Great. And catch you guys in the next episode.
Yeah. Thank you guys. We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.